Sheepdog Nation. Welcome to another episode. I'm really excited to have you here. Today's interview is going to be a lot different than probably any interview you've ever heard on a police podcast, which is why I'm so excited to have this happen. I'm going to be introducing to you a woman who is literally an expert on migraines. She is a former client of mine. She's an absolute badass. I cannot wait for you to talk with her. But she's going to talk to us a lot about stress management and different things that we can do that are not running to the pharmacy, are not running to, popping the ibuprofen that we all eat. Like M&Ms and our cruisers. We're going to talk about, just kind of how the moon affects, the police work and the criminals and even us and how it affects us. So I'm excited for this. You're going to want to tune into this because this is affecting you right now in your cruiser as you're listening on your overnights, as most of you are. And so I'm excited for this. So welcome, Lisa. Introduce yourself and tell Sheepdog Nation a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Lisa Erickson, and I created this product called Migraine Magick, but it's really a lifestyle product, and I created it for you guys. Like I had 30 years of chronic migraines, and that's really how it was born because I had tried everything under the sun, all kinds of medicines, all kinds of doctors, all kinds of alternative medicine. And then nothing really seemed to sustainably help me. So I ended up making my own remedy, and it's helping thousands now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sheepdog Nation, what I want to tell you is that this is something that I've been using for, is it 2 years now, Lisa? Two, maybe more than that.
Probably. Like you were my first coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, yeah, and I'm going to tell you, like, ever since I've had your product, I've been buying it over and over again. The product, it's obviously, it's a little bit more, it's holistic. It's unconventional, which is why I fucking love it because, I mean, Lisa, I can't tell you the number of times I've like phoned Lisa, I've messaged her and been like, Lisa, migraine, what do I do? And you always give me great little like tips of advice, like, put a little salt underneath your tongue or, put this on your forehead or your temples and this and that. So I'm excited to like talk about this. So you had migraines. Tell us a little bit of the backstory. Like, how did you decide, like, we all have migraines, like what made you decide to do something? And then how did you create this?
So the long story is I think I had my first one when I was like 7 years old. And, or I was getting them and my mom brought me to the doctors, God love them. And I remember the doctor telling me, oh, you don't have a migraine because you're throwing up, because I would throw up. And a lot of times people throw up because the pain is so strong, they literally get nauseous. And for me, there came a time actually where I would sometimes make myself throw up because I knew it would release a lot of the tension. It's like chronic traction tension for a lot of people with chronic migraines. And so I just kind of like, honestly, just sucked it up. I didn't complain about it. I just learned to live with it, which is really, I think a lot of people do, but it's not good for you. Mm-hmm. And then they like picked up speed when I was in college. And then as I became more of a grown-up, they got progressively worse. And in between then, I have 4 children, a couple of dogs, a husband, and it just, no medicine was helping me. There would be one medicine that I actually loved. It was called Migraine, and they took it off the market. And about 50% of the time I could count on it to like completely obliterate the migraine that was actually growing, like in speed, picking up speed. Because the way I explain how a migraine is, when you're in the full pain phase, it's like a runaway freight train. You can't stop. There's no brakes that can stop it. You like literally have to create a different railway system to detour it off track so you don't so nobody dies, and then you can slow it down a little bit and a little bit and a little bit if you get the space. So really, I just got really sick of it. I mean, I'm 47. When I created this around the age, my stomach couldn't, was starting to act up. And
Mm-hmm.
like I was having trouble metabolizing stuff, not wicked bad, but enough that I was like, uh-oh, like this is going south fast. Like I can't keep taking the medicine. They don't work anyways. Now my kids are starting, like I have 4 children, and my daughter, she's predisposed to a true migraine. My younger son is tension headaches. I have another son that's had one cluster headache, and those are like beyond brutal. And then my other child, whenever he gets sick, he gets headaches. And the real amazing thing is that, so I had been working on healing myself for over a decade specific to migraine. And I had done all kinds of research. I had picked up all kinds of remedies along the way. None of them really worked. And then one day, my daughter literally came downstairs, like her tattered baby blanket in her hand. And she's literally like, Mommy, she didn't have to say anything, I just know, but she's like, Mommy, my head hurts. Light makes me want to throw up. My
Mm.
belly feels nauseous. Like my hands are cold. I'm sweating. Like, Mommy, please help me. And I was like a deer in headlights because I'm like,
Mm.
oh, no, 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 no. Like, no. And my husband's a cranberry farmer, and we live on the bogs. And I just remember looking out over the bogs thinking, this stops here. I don't know how. I don't know how. Like I had no idea how. I never
Mhm.
set out to make this stuff, but I like literally decided in that moment. And then I don't know, like I just went into my office and I started looking around, and like just these patterns started like revealing themselves to me. Kind of like, I remember this quote. I think actually I would love to say it was like, Gandhi, but it was actually Dr. Phil. And I remember him saying, you always have what you need.
Mm.
So I'm like, all right, it's go time. And so I just started looking around at all this research and stuff I had collected, and I started putting together things that seemed to help people. And then I would like literally refine it, and I kept refining it, and I kept refining it. And I ended up with this recipe, and I created this remedy, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I know that's hard to maybe understand, but I didn't even, I mean, I always make stuff, and
Mhm.
I made this stuff. I didn't even know how I had the right bottle for it because it's a spray on. It like required this fine mist, which I
Mhm.
later figured out why, and I sprayed it on me, and I kid you not, 30 years of migraine were gone, like in
Mhm.
an instant. And I was like, no way, like, no way. And it only lasted 15 seconds. And then the pain came back like full on.
Mhm.
But then that's how I got to know how to prescribe it for myself and how I needed to use it. Because I started out making it really for her, which is whacked if you think about it. Like, why was it okay theoretically for my daughter not to suffer, but it was okay for me to suffer?
Because that's what
Like,
we
think about
do.
it.
That's what we
Yeah, like,
do. Yeah.
and how screwed up is that?
Yeah. Very.
But yeah, but like the tiger comes out. If somebody like attacks you or something or criticizes you, all right, whatever. But if they go after someone you love, it's like the claws come out,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
like, rah. So
Mhm.
that was the force. It was an atomic mother's love force that literally projected me into creating this um, pain, tension, nausea, anxiety reliever, because it's, a migraine is systemic through the body, and it's all of that and more. Um, so that's how I ended up really creating it.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about that, Lisa. So it's not just migraine. So we have a lot of cops on here that face obviously headaches, migraines, we get them, especially if you're a cop, get them all the time. The
Mm,
tension, when you talked about a tension headache, I really want to talk about that. I know
yeah.
that is extremely popular in, in our field, as well as, I want to talk about the anxiety and how to, and how, what this does. So can you, like, what does this thing do? Like, what's this magic potion do?
So as you can imagine, creating this holistic medicine and pairing the word magic with migraine is basically kind of crazy. Like, but
Mm-hmm.
to the credit to the actual potency and healing magnitude of this, I mean, there's just, I've had only really, really great responses. And so, as far as like in terms of tension headaches, because tension headaches really can morph into a migraine pretty easy. And tension headaches are like, they're, I mean, I know what they are. I would get them all the time. And even now, if I feel my shoulders starting to like raise and we all have our little things, like
Mm-hmm.
whether you're hungry or you're sitting in the place for the same time, or you're bored or you're frustrated and you have that anxiety. And a lot of times anxiety, in my experience and with my clients and customers, it's really a fear of the future.
Mm.
But here's the thing. If you feel it long enough, it literally gets hardwired into your nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets plugged in to your subconscious. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like going, it's on, it's always running in the background. And like when something triggers you, or you using, the Queen's speech, like whatever it is that would kind of get you in a space to
Yep.
feel anxiety, it just immediately kicks in this pattern that goes throughout your body. It turns on, different molecules and enzymes and all that jazz. And then you're really feeling it full force. A lot, so the way I structured this is because I had a lot of anxiety growing up.
Mm.
And I really just kind of, because of the way my life was, and it wasn't like, comparatively speaking, like really bad, but
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of stress where I grew up, and I internalized it a lot. And I took on a lot of extra responsibility as the oldest. Now, my parents didn't ask me to, I just assumed that role.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're little and you take on extra stuff, it literally goes into your body like post-traumatic stress disorder does.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that there might be, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of PTSD in this field.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And everybody's PTSD is different because everybody's wired different. But I started to see a lot of similar core based triggers. And
Mm.
so there's not one particular ingredient or technology embedded in this medicine, but rather it's the synergy of all the ingredients
Mm-hmm.
and their healing properties together that really is the magic. And so this is a topical spray on or a roll on. I think you prefer the roll on.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody got like occasional headaches, all you would do is you would just roll the area like a regular roll on you see everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that would kind of balance whatever is going on biochemically in your body, like whatever chemical reactions are going on your body based upon really your trigger and these underlying patterns and currents in your system.
Mm-hmm.
It would balance you. And then if you had the awareness to kind of take a look and be like, what brought that on,
Right. Yep.
because that's really key. Like when you're able to realize what happened, like just
Mm.
before or a little bit before you started to feel disharmonious or uncomfortable or pain and tension, the there's a lot of there's medicine in even figuring out that piece.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do. I just know. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know that, for me, I just remember just dealing with so much shit that
Yeah.
like halfway through my shift, every shift I would have a headache every single shift when I was working full-time patrol. And sometimes before I'd even get there, I think
Mm,
for, Sheepdog Nation, I think that and it's just like this for anybody, but really, I'm going to focus on us is like we have so much shit to do. We have so much on our shoulders and we have to be 10 steps ahead. And like you mentioned earlier, when we get into the future, and it's like, it's hard. It's this balance. It's this hard balance because I know from like a spiritual and like a mindset aspect, like you always want to remain present, but our training has this constantly going 5 steps ahead, always, because
mm-hmm.
that's how you quote unquote survive. But at the same time, while maybe
Mm-hmm.
you'll survive tactically, spiritually, emotionally, like you're not surviving because you're literally in a state of pure anxiety and stress and tension constantly. So, um, yeah, really.
Yeah, and think about what that it's like if you want to take it to the nth degree, like you're literally bathing one's body and cells in this toxicity
Mm-hmm,
of these fight or flight chemicals.
mm-hmm,
And I mean, I don't know. I think it would be very important for, officers, if they don't already, to kind of be aware that there needs to be a grounding like you're talking
mm-hmm,
about. Like it sounds to me like you're always projecting out because you're here to protect us.
mm-hmm.
um and the margin of error could be lethal
Yep.
sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm getting sick to my stomach just thinking about that. um
Yep.
I'm gonna spray it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think meditation is really important, even something such as like going barefoot for 17 seconds, like just connecting your feet to the ground. And I know that sounds kind of like crunchy and stuff, but it works. Like if you can go barefoot for 17 seconds and excuse me, and consciously kind of feel your feet against the earth, it does a lot for one's body and mind and spirit, because honestly, we have these currents of electricity that run through us. This isn't woo. This is science has proven this.
Mm-hmm.
And these currents come in, and part of the stress and anxiety is if we're not really grounded, or we're not aware of that energy, what we pay attention to and the way we pay attention to it is really important. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it literally depletes this energy that you actually need to power up, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to relying on like the adrenaline rush.
Mm.
Does this make sense?
Yeah. No, makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think that the feet to the ground thing, like sheepdogs, don't get it twisted. Like we know that while you're 10-8 and on the road, you probably really can't do that and not be safe about it and not look like a crazy person. But prior to going on shift,
Yeah.
do that. Or, when you get off shift, depending on what time, like just go take a second to ground yourself. I mean, that's a really valid point. It's something that I do constantly. I do it every day, and I also do it in a form of meditation. And while I was full time on the road, I had to do this. I had to meditate every day because if I didn't, I was a wreck. I was
Mm,
just angry all the time, and my personal life was not good, and just all these things. And this is what we see over time, with many members of Sheepdog Nation. Lisa, I have a question. So, I really been focusing and talking to sheepdogs, especially people who've been injured on the job, right? And
mm.
your Migraine Magic is definitely for migraines, but I want to ask you, like, how can that, or how do you have any like holistic advice? Like what can people be doing who've been injured like I did, like got a hurt back, sprain their ankles, sprain their knee, whatever. Can they apply that to help ease the pain? Like what do you think? What's
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a physician, but this is again in helping thousands of people. I think you were more interested in your back initially. I can't remember if it was your back or your headaches, but I have a pretty good Migraine Magick has a pretty good track record in helping any kind of neurological stuff, and actually those mysterious diseases like fibromyalgia and even thyroid stuff, because the beauty of this is that I took what I saw to be like, I reverse engineered a migraine. And so before a migraine, there's like usually heightened sensatory stuff. Like people get with any kind of pain though, this is true. Like even with back stuff or fibromyalgia stuff, there are certain times that yes, you can be so chronic that you're not firing on all cylinders and you basically feel like, every day. However, there's these different signals and cues that do let you know before something's going to flare up. And I'll come back to that in a minute, but I see that people seem to do very well with things that are like neuralgia or nerve stuff. If you had joint issues, I'd be like, yeah, try it. It's magic. It works on a lot of really good stuff, but I wouldn't be like, yes, it's going to work for that, because it's a different animal. This is structured to not only anesthetize and like give you pain relief, it's also structured for like the muscles. There's a lot of magnesium oil that I personally create that goes into that for like the tension. And even as far as the nausea, there's a lot of different things that I put together, and you can even spray your belly, like where you actually feel the nausea, because a lot of migraine sufferers, this is the accurate term, they get this nausea beforehand in their aura. But the really cool thing is that our bodies, because they are electrical magnetic, like think about it. If you almost know, like maybe when you would get the call for like something really bad was going down, the hair would you probably even knew right before the dispatcher even gave you, like your assignment. I bet, because you have to be intuitive to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you do.
You have to rely on your other senses all the time.
Yep.
And so that comes in the form of electromagnetics in the body. And so this is structured to replenish and nourish those pieces in your body that aren't getting what they need, because either you have anxiety all the time and you're just constantly depleting your system, or you don't eat well enough to give your body the juice or the energy it really needs, and probably because you don't even know how to, like people with migraines, there's a way that you can eat that you can actually contribute to your own healing, because migraineurs actually have a different brain.
No kidding.
Yeah, like we have more neural connections, which actually requires us more electricity to operate. And subsequently, if we're not getting all the stuff we need to feed the nerves to pump out all the signals they need to all the other parts of the body, we literally short circuit out. And this is kind of what's happening, is like we're already overwhelmed sensatory wise and underwhelmed because we're not getting the nourishment we need inside. And then with those two polar opposite things are always at play, and then you add like the stress of the job, PTSD built into the system, barometric pressure changes, maybe you got food allergies, maybe you got structural misalignment. I mean, like the sky's the limit. I mean, this is why people aren't I don't know of any medicine or any one-shot stop thing other than kind of like what I do is healing people with migraine, because it's a multiple system red light thing going off in the body. And so I tried to take that into consideration and really supply healthy pain relief that's literally nourishing to the nervous system.
That's cool. So
And
like,
so that affects all kinds of stuff.
yeah. Okay. So I'm going to tell you the one thing that's on everyone's mind. And I know like you can't give us like the exact recipe, but like, what the hell is it?
That's the magic. And everything is disclosed on the bottle because people with migraines and uber sensitive nervous systems, like there's little tweaks that can just send them over the edge. And so one of the things with people with migraine is that just thinking about the perfume counter in a mall
Yeah.
can bring on a migraine.
Mm-hmm.
So the purity and the frequency of everything that I've chosen is truly I searched the entire world, and I really just hunted down the purest and the most refined and the most organic and the healthiest
Mm-hmm.
ingredients, because I mean, it had to be good enough for my daughter.
Right.
It had to be good enough for me.
Yep.
It's got to be good enough for you. And I know a slight thing can cause a migraine out of the blue. And the last thing I want to do is contribute to you not healing. So I structured in sound and vibration, which combined with the physical ingredients, it's working on your whole system, just not your physical body, because there's a lot more to us,
Mm-hmm.
our emotions and that PTSD in there that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get unwound just by a pill, you know?
No, and that's the thing. And that's I believe in that. And there's so many sheepdogs listening to this right now being like, yeah, I about the PTSD. It's so true. It is so true. And I know that almost all officers have it to some degree or another. And you're right. And the one, like you said, the one pill is just not fixing it. Because we would not be having, such the epidemics that we're having, military personnel were with the suicide rate, the suicide rate in law enforcement. It's absolutely devastating, to be honest. So that's such a good point. I really appreciate that. Lisa, talk a little bit about let's talk about like the times of the month or the times, like we all know Sheepdog Nation, like I want to talk about this because we have never talked about it on this podcast too, because it's true. So you're going to want to bear with us because we're going to get a little bit, we're not going to get too like spiritual on you, but just pay attention because we all know shit hits the fan on a full moon. Like we all know. So, like Lisa, can we talk about that when it comes to maybe like our body, like do our nerves, like does the pain increase? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Talk to us
Yeah.
about that.
So right now, so one of the other things that I noticed, because I just kept structuring on healing layers into this solution, was when I actually started to get better,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that there were 2 times during a month that I would get these abominable migraines that like I couldn't crack in the very beginning. It took me 6 months and I finally cracked it. And I noticed, and then because I left no stone unturned, I actually tuned in to figuring out that these 2 pockets are 3 to 5 days before the new moon. And I'm going to stop right here and say right now, I think we officially go into the new moon tomorrow. So if you're listening and you are predisposed to tension headaches or migraines, I bet you anything you had one. And you're probably in the hangover phase right now. And the period between the new moon, so like when the moon is dark, you look up in the sky and you don't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
This is, out of the 2 phases, it's the stronger one that needs to be unraveled and cared for and nourished and loved through. Because what's special about these 2 pockets, I mean, aside from the moon, is that these are the times when, and this is for guys too, but the hormones have the greatest shifts. And so you'll have this influx of a hormone and a drop of another one, and it wreaks havoc in our body. And the thing is like hormones affect our emotions. They're literally part of the translators that talk to other pieces in our body and our nerves and translate the electricity into a feeling, because the liquid in our body can be measured at a pH, and a pH is just another thing for an electrical reading in liquid. And so we have that pocket right now, and then the other pocket of time is like 3 to 5 days before a full moon. And again, there's another great hormonal shift. And the thing about the new moon is that what happens is gravitationally, it literally pulls a lot of the fluids in our body up to our head. So the old theory about migraine had to do with, contraction and constriction of your veins, which that's part of it, but that's not all of it. And so I would say that that's a bigger piece around the new moon. But for the most part, it's more hormonal. And when your hormones start wreaking havoc, and I'm just talking broad scale, everybody's so different. Like this is just generally speaking.
Yep.
When the cray comes up and you're feeling the way you're feeling, whether a lot of times people get like angry, they feel real needy, or they feel real frustrated, lack of patience. They just like want to go in and like hibernate. And sometimes it's our stuff and sometimes it's other stuff. But when it is our stuff, again, if we can kind of step back and just have the awareness, like, what is this?
Right.
Like, what is this? And so the other way, I have people working with my products is that the brain, like I just said this yesterday on a live, when the Egyptians mummified their pharaohs, they took all the internal stuff out. What they did was they would put the heart back in and the womb, or the belly stuff back in, because the piece of our belly, it's really like our battery. The stuff where our gut is, that's the battery that keeps us running. And then the heart, actually there's this group called Heart Math, and I've been studying with them for a while, and the heart actually like magnetizes what the gut produces, like the energy. So if your gut energy is low, and by the way, a lot of migraines start because people aren't able to metabolize foods a certain way, and even medicines. That's why maybe some of the medicine would work a lot better if our digestive system or our metabolic system was working better. Who knows? And again, that's why Migraine Magick is so effective, because there's a headache clinic out in Washington State that told me the reason it is so effective is because molecularly it's so small, it just goes right in and bypasses the whole metabolic process. But anyways.
Is that why that you have it on a spray bottle or like the roll-on? It's because it's,
yeah. But I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
Like I had to reverse engineer all this stuff. So back to the Egyptians, they don't put the brain back in. They throw the brain out, because the brain is just like a processor. And so the old way of doing things is trying to kind of think our way out of stuff, but it really hasn't worked. So even like with officers, if you're in a standoff and you got to make a quick decision, you're going with your gut.
Yeah.
You're not going with your head. Your head might do this surveying the options thing.
Yeah.
But second brain is in the gut, and it's just, it always knows. Like there's not one person that I know that doesn't say, oh, I should have not listened to my intuition.
Agreed.
I mean, it's always like, oh, I knew it too,
Yep.
So I forget where the moon, the Egyptians throw the brain out, because it's just like basically this processing thing that gets programmed as we get older. And so there's an old school of thought that like the pain is in the brain, but it's really not. And where I'm going with this is our whole body is our mind. It's a body mind. Like our
Mm,
subconscious is in our body. And so just you might have pain in the head, neck, and shoulder region,
mm-hmm,
but the warning lights are going off all throughout your body.
mm,
And that's like fibromyalgia takes that to the nth degree. So it's like, if you can, when I finally was able to balance my pain, so I started feeling good. And you hear people like, am I dying? Like, I feel so good. Like, I haven't felt this good in so long.
mm-hmm.
Once I was able to calm that down, then I was able to kind of I had another vantage point for looking at the migraine. And it was just really, to me, it was my wake up call. It was my wake up call that, I wasn't providing myself the self-care that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking in a way that was being self-caring or nourishing. And my migraine actually taught me a whole hell of a lot. And now it all makes sense as to why I ended up creating this stuff, but I never set out to.
No. No. Well, Lisa, I gotta say, I want to thank you so much because you've given us so much to think about. And I really appreciate all of the information. I never would have any idea about all of this. Could you tell Sheepdog Nation where we can find your stuff, where we can read more about it?
Yeah, so I have some really good stuff on my website, which is www.migrainemagick, and that's magick.com. And one of the things I have a free migraine pattern calendar on there. And if you follow that for 3 months, you'll find out that what I'm saying is true, that you seem to be susceptible to experience your stuff, around those 2 pockets of time. And if you're chronic, anything in between are like the headaches or the migraines that you could probably pop some ibuprofen and slug whatever, drink whatever you drink and whatever, and you could probably barrel through, but you're still not really healing. So you can do that. So you can find my stuff at migrainemagick.com, and that's www.migrainemagick.com. And I created this migraine pattern calendar, which is free. So if you download it and just put it on your fridge, I'm old school, so I still have calendars on my fridge. And not so much like what you experience in the middle of the day-to-day, just kind of X off the severity and track your migraine and or your headaches and or your anxiety. And within 3 months, you will see your own personal pattern emerge. I also I had this special audio created to actually balance the brain hemispheres so that it would provide real internal relaxation. That's the Migraine Magick audio. That's available there. Obviously, my products. If you're chronic, you need the bottle. If you're a sometimes headacher, then you can get away with the roll-on. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. And I also have a free ebook on the Migraine Magick site too, which will go even into more depth about the electricity in your brain. So I encourage you to download that stuff. It's free.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll just I've had people report back to me that this is stuff that they've known all along, and because they were never validated, they just kind of like buried it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had other people say, I have never in a million years thought about it this way, and it makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing about this is so for my sheepdogs who are like me, right? Like I take ibuprofen. I mean, I used to eat them like they were M&Ms because I didn't have a choice because I couldn't get through my shift, or, I was working 16 hours a day. I mean, it was just crazy. But here's the thing. When I found Migraine Magick, I won't lie, just like you are right now, totally skeptical. I was too.
Yeah, me
Totally.
too.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally. And I was like, okay, no, I doubt it. And I'm going to be honest, I got it for my back because, my back gives me a ton of issues. And 2 years ago, I was right fresh into my injury. And so I wanted something because it was hurting me every day. Sitting was killing me. Standing was killing me. The only thing I could do was lay down, and I wasn't able to stand up straight. And so, I found Lisa and I got her product, and I actually bought the spray for my back, and it literally, I could stand up straight, and it was amazing. And I mean, yeah, I would reapply it, and I loved it. And then I started using it for my head. And then guess what? My husband, who, he's a police officer in the box. Okay. He's not Mr. Holistic by any stretch. And so I started using it on him. He'd be like, oh, I have such a headache. And I would spray him, and then we'd get the roll on, and I roll it on his forehead and on his temples and in the back of his neck. And it changed. And then you know what happened? Here's what happened. And then I have it in my purse, and I'd go and be with like my friends, and someone say they'd have a headache. I'm like, oh, put this on. And guess what? They're all addicted, all of them. So like, it's one of those things that like, yeah, I know, Sheepdog, you're sitting here and you're like, oh, I don't know. Cause you're a cop. Like, you're just like me. I get it totally. But the roll on that Lisa has, it's like, what is it? Like $20, $25? I mean, it's, and it lasts.
Yeah, it's a good gateway drug into Migraine Magick.
Totally.
Let you know.
And you can carry it right in your duty bag, which is the best. And you'd roll it right on, like your forehead, right? Your temples or the back of your neck, or
wherever you feel anxiety, tension, or pain.
And I do it on my jaw too. I want to say that. So I grind my teeth at night. And so when I'm feeling really tense, and like when I'm really when I'm really stressed out, my jaw will get really tight. And so then I'll just use I want to say the spray on. What did I just say? The roll on.
Roll on.
Yeah. And then I was going to call it rub on, and I'm like, okay, that's not it.
Well, what's really cool about the roll on, and I don't know if you know this, so I want to tell you this, is that when you're using it, those spots you talked about, like above the eye, side of the eye, under the eye, and your jaw, you're actually, the roll on lends it helps you touch the acupressure points. Ooh. So if you guys know anything about traditional Chinese medicine or acupuncture, like, you have these energetic highways, these spiritual highways, these electric highways that run through our body. And a lot of the anxiety or trapped trauma is stored along those. They're invisible, but they're detected. They can be measured electrically, and it gets trapped in there. So if you ever went to see an acupuncturist, this is what they're doing. They're inserting these needles in these pathways to free up trapped energy. And you can do that too, just by rolling on, or like giving a little extra tap to those areas that are sore, because those areas that are sore that you're rolling on, they're acupressure points, almost all of them.
Wow, that's really good to know. I love hearing that. Lisa, what's your handle on Instagram? Because that's where a lot of my people hang out.
Migraine Magick 911.
It's fucking hilarious. I love it.
I never even put that together till now. That's a riot.
Good. So, sheepdogs, if you guys want to, which I highly suggest you do, go investigate Lisa's all of her stuff. She's helped thousands of people all across the world with migraines. Like I said, I was total skeptic. Now I'm 100% believer, and everyone around me uses it. Go find her. I'll have all of her. You'll be able to get to all of her stuff with the show notes. But Lisa, I just can't thank you enough for coming on. I'm excited. I'm totally excited to share this out for Sheepdog Nation, so they can get a look on the tension, headaches, and migraines that they've been feeling. They can get a different perspective on it, which is cool, and a different way to handle it versus popping ibuprofen all the time. So thank you so much, Lisa, for coming on.
You're welcome. And one last thing, I think your peeps would really get a kick out of is on my blog. And if you want to hear more about my story and other ways I helped heal myself, I literally have a 12-page love letter to my migraine. You do? I do. It's insane. Nice. It's so good, and it's worth anybody's time to read it if deal with this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks,
Thanks
Lisa.
for having me.
Yeah, Sheepdog Nation. I'll see you next time.
Sheepdog Nation.
And that was another episode of Sheepdog Nation. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes and let us know by giving us a rating. If you have questions that you want answered by Autumn in the podcast, submit it by going to the link in the show notes. As always, stay safe and watch your six.